Richard Dean Anderson stunned Hollywood in 2013 by turning down proposals worth $30 million. He was only 63. He was still in high demand. Anderson had a secret, despite the studio's entreaties for him to return. Anderson has been hiding a sinister secret about the industry for decades, according to people close to him. He has never spoken it in public because of the extreme trauma he had from something that happened during his MacGyver years. He chose to remain silent rather than become a celebrity because of what Hollywood insiders did to him. In January 1950, Richard Dean Anderson was born on a chilly day. He had recently been born in Dawson Creek, British Columbia. 3 days later, however, they packed up the baby and entered the United States. They made Minneapolis, Minnesota, their home. Richard would become the oldest of 4 brothers there. Stuart, his father, was not just a schoolteacher. At night, he performed jazz bass, while during the day, he taught English and acting. His mom, Jocelyn, was a talented painter and sculptor. Music, art, and stage lighting were all a part of Richard's universe from the start. The fragrance of paint and jazz frequently filled the walls of their house. As a young lad, he would observe his father practicing plays while he sat silently in the rear of high school theaters. He remembers seeing Twinkies used as birthday cake by actors during a rehearsal. He concluded that it was worthwhile to pursue any job that offered free Twinkies. Growing up in Roseville, a suburb, he spent most of his time daydreaming and playing ice hockey. His passion for the sport was almost obsessive. He was known as a hockey nut. He was also excellent. The legendary hockey player Stan Mikita even commended his abilities. Richard's aspirations of becoming a professional athlete were dashed at the age of 16. His first injury was a broken arm from a brutal game collision. 3 weeks later, he broke the other one. He needed surgery with pins and plates after the second break, which was so severe that it kept him in the hospital for 3 months. Physicians feared that he might never be able to move again. Real teams at the time were scouting him. Not only was it painful to have everything torn away like that, identity loss was the cause. His identity was hockey. And it had vanished. His sadness got worse. The time spent in the hospital seemed to go on forever. And the agony in his bones was not as sharp as the quiet of not being able to skate again. But in that silence, an unexpected thing started to develop. He became increasingly interested in his father's school plays. He became a member of theater groups. Casts were still on his arms when he performed. When everything else had slipped away, acting provided him with something to cling to. In the midst of those little shows, a fire was sparked that would never die out. Richard had a difficult childhood. His family had very little. The essentials were barely met by his father's salary. The concerts occasionally helped. Sometimes they didn't. All 4 of the lads had to help. Richard brought newspapers. He understood the value of every dollar. When he was only 10 years old, he attempted to cycle from Minneapolis to Duluth, demonstrating how to make the most of what little he had. 100 miles is that distance. He kept the whole scheme a secret from his parents. He simply hopped on his bike and rode away. He traveled 50 miles, or halfway, prior to his tiny body giving up. Although he had to go back, it didn't feel like a failure. Even at the age of 10, he dared to attempt something that most grown-ups would not. By the age of 17, his desire for risk only increased. He set off on a bicycle journey across the country. From Minnesota, he traveled more than 5,600 miles through Canada and Alaska. For the last 33 days, he worked alone. He had a bike, a harsh combination of weather and mountains, and no team or car to follow him. In Taos, New Mexico, he had been stranded in a whiteout during a terrible snowstorm earlier that year due to winds of 105 miles per hour. He made it out alive. And he persisted in demanding more ways. He became proficient in scuba diving. He became proficient in motorcycling. He purchased 4. As well as a Harley Davidson. For amusement, he would leap from school roofs. After crashing a dirt bike, he would stand up smiling. After he once fell off a board, he needed stitches after hurting his head. That didn't make him slow down. During a harsh Minnesota winter, he once made the decision to live in an igloo and established a world record. It was his own creation. For 3 days, he remained there. He almost died of freezing. However, that presented him with still another obstacle. His adolescence was filled with dangerous antics and near misses. He had no fear of suffering. Failure didn't frighten him. He was afraid of being still. In 1976, Richard Dean Anderson made a bold step by leaving Ohio University and relocating to Los Angeles. He was full of uncertainties and only had a dream, with no assurance that he would succeed. He did everything he could to stay alive. Working in a marine display with whales was one of his most peculiar occupations. Although he needed the money for rent, that work taught him how to manage stress and remain composed in front of large crowds. He had previously honed his acting skills in the theaters of New York City prior to this. Every strange job and every little stage was a prelude to something more significant. Everything changed in the spring of 1976, the same year. General Hospital was his first major break. He appeared in 611 episodes over the course of 5 years, playing the role of Dr. Jeff Weber. This occurred on July 26, 1976, right before the show's duration increased from 30 to 45 minutes. The ratings began to rise quickly. General Hospital was the most popular daytime drama in America by 1979. It was Anderson who joined that wave. Stars like Stuart Damon and Denise Alexander co-starred with him. By 1981, he had become into more than simply another soap actor. Producers began taking notice of him. He didn't slow down from that point on. He appeared in The Facts of Life in 1981, immediately following General Hospital, where he portrayed Brian Parker. He then made an appearance as Andy McFay on Today's FBI. And even made an appearance in 1982 as Carter Randall on The Love Boat. These positions weren't arbitrary. Everyone was picked with care. He was demonstrating that he was capable of more than soap operas. He demonstrated range as he had intended. He made relationships and gained experience working with various directors and crews. But things didn't always go as planned. He was handed the lead in 2 CBS programs between 1982 and 1984. He first appeared in 22 episodes of 7 Brides for 7 Brothers as Adam McFadden. He then went on to Emerald Point NAS, where he served for another 22 episodes as Lieutenant Simon Adams. One season was all that was left of both shows. 2 huge failures, 2 huge opportunities. A career for a budding actor can be destroyed by such consecutive failures. Anderson, however, continued. He looked on. He gained knowledge. He listened to what the audiences had to say. Then, in 1985, the job that would alter everything arrived. He had an odd experience during his 1985 MacGyver audition. His glasses were on when he arrived. They remained on him. He didn't want to impress anyone or look cool. The producers liked that raw, unpolished moment. An ordinary action star was not what they were searching for. They were looking for genuineness. It went to Anderson. He persuaded them to let him perform the majority of his own stunts despite the fact that he lacked stunt training. He was in 70% of the perilous scenes you watch. He thought he should do things himself. In real life, he shared MacGyver's hatred of firearms. That was the ideal match. The show was a huge hit. 139 episodes of MacGyver were broadcast between 1985 and 1992. Anderson became a TV legend after working as a soap actress. His seasonally income has increased to $1 million by 1990. When he negotiated producer credits for the subsequent seasons, however, that's where the big money was. In other words, he also received a cut from syndication. There was always MacGyver. Because it was clever and devoid of violence, parents adored the show. It made science seem cool, which is why kids enjoyed it. It even turned the word MacGyver into a verb. You MacGyvered something, not fixed it. In 2006, 14 years after the show's conclusion, he revived the character in a Super Bowl commercial. The figure had become ingrained in popular culture to that extent. However, success has a cost. While filming a sprinting scenario on difficult terrain in 1987, Anderson accidentally walked into a concealed hole. He did more than just trip and fall. His disc burst. The ache traveled down his leg. He continued walking despite his inability to do so. He took medicines and refused assistance while filming episodes in excruciating pain for a year and a half. Stunt doubles were not what he wanted. Although he didn't want to appear weak, the harm was genuine. He was warned by doctors of long-term nerve problems. When he finally gave in, he underwent surgery. The ache, however, never completely subsided. He kept it with him throughout the remainder of the performance. One of the most memorable scenes from Anderson's own early years was in MacGyver's debut episode. He enjoyed building new ideas and disassembling things as a child. That behavior evolved into the well-known paperclip bum. In the original script, it wasn't. The recollection was directly from Anderson's own. In fact, as a child, he had constructed such objects. The pilot received a rating of 10.9 when it aired. This indicates that almost 20 million people watched. Although the network was first let down, that particular scenario went on to become legendary. Anderson became the go-to person for writers seeking guidance on what kinds of innovations MacGyver could create. He shaped the part, not just played it. By 1991, he was overwhelmed by the demands of the show. On the set, he passed out. He passed out from extreme fatigue, stress, and dehydration. His body was just 20% working, according to the doctors. He was burnt out. He requested release from the studio. No, they responded, threatening to sue him for $18 million if he quit. It was no bluff to use that number. Despite his failing health, he was confined and had to continue filming. He later acknowledged that his entire life had been consumed with the show. Beyond that, nothing remained. Richard Dean Anderson startled everyone at MGM when he accepted the role of Stargate SG-1 in 1997 by making a request that had never been made by an actor. He had no desire for a full-time position. A 3-day workweek was what he requested. Thus, Friday through Sunday would be off-limits. For the sake of having his newborn daughter Wiley at home. The producers found it hard to believe. Filming a whole show around one actor sounded like a crazy idea. However, Anderson was fresh off one of the most popular shows of the late 1980s and early 1990s, MacGyver, and his name alone could attract millions of people. MGM gave in. He was given the deal. Despite working part-time, he made $100,000 per episode. The 10 seasons were somehow covered by the part-time contract. Anderson ultimately made appearances in 173 of the 214 episodes. Hollywood made that 3-day contract famous. He got away with it better than anyone else, but other performers began to ask for the same thing. When the 5th season of the show aired in 2001, things became even more bizarre. The salary for Anderson had doubled. At this point, he was making $200,000 every episode. Even yet, he was only working 3 days a week, earning $4.4 million annually. With an average weekly viewership of almost 2.5 million, Stargate SG-1 has emerged as sci-fi's crown jewel. The program was generating over $100 million in syndication deals abroad. For Anderson and Amanda to participate on a panel together, fan conferences would pay them up to $50,000. Considering that a large number of his lines weren't even in the script, the fans adored him. Many of O'Neill's sardonic one-liners were made up on the spot by Anderson. The show alone brought him around $30 million over 10 seasons. Reruns and residuals, which continue to generate revenue, were not included in that. But things weren't always easy. Anderson's entire life altered in 2004 due to an incident. During what should have been a straightforward running scenario during Season 8 filming, he hurt his knee. His foot landed incorrectly, though. His knee bent. Ligaments were torn. The ache came suddenly. Months of rehabilitation and surgery were required. Keep performing physical scenes, the doctors instructed him bluntly. He might no longer be able to walk normally. The producers made an ingenious adjustment rather than dismissing him from the show. After being elevated to Brigadier General, Colonel O'Neill would primarily remain a desk-bound employee. He reduced his action sequences by over half. His lack of activity was observed by his supporters, but they were unsure of the reason. It took years for the truth to be revealed. Anderson continues to limp slightly to this day. The majority of the treatment was covered by insurance, but the overall cost exceeded $200,000. Nevertheless, it was a watershed. He never again accepted a physically taxing position. In the same year, Anderson directed Double Jeopardy, one of the most memorable episodes of Season 4 of the show. The intended sci-fi action episode was supposed to be enjoyable, but Anderson added something surprising. The alien battle sequences were choreographed by him using his 15 years of amateur hockey experience. Like a power play on hockey, he drew out alien bouts, examined tapes, and analyzed NHL games. The intensity increased. His constant demands for retakes caused the show to go $300,000 over budget. There were 47 takes for one fight sequence. At some point, the stunt coordinator resigned. Anderson persisted, nevertheless. He was fixated. During lunch, he even rehearsed fight movements with the stunt guys. Records were broken when the episode aired. There were 3.1 million viewers. It ended up being the season's highest-rated episode. However, Anderson was disintegrating behind the scenes even as the show was reaching its zenith. When he won the Saturn Award for Best Actor in 2001, he was also covertly battling a serious case of burnout. Despite the fact that his 3-day workweek may have seemed simple, each day began at 5 in the morning and ended at 7. There were no breaks for him. The strain was overwhelming. He admitted to co-star Michael Shanks that it was really harming his health. He needed medication to fall asleep. For the sole purpose of staying awake, he was consuming 8 to 10 cups of coffee daily. Backstage makeup professionals tried to conceal the dark circles under his eyes, but fans saw a happy performer throughout his acceptance speech. In addition to seeing a therapist twice a week, he was considering leaving the program after season 7. The tipping point was when he really slept off in the middle of a live interview. MGM intervened at that point. They halved his publicity efforts and recruited a personal assistant for him. At the time, the only person aware of the therapy sessions was Amanda Tapping. Despite years of bearing that burden, Anderson wasn't scared to take chances with his career. In 1992, he took a very unexpected action. He starred in Through the Eyes of a Killer, a CBS thriller. Fans who had grown accustomed to him being the hero were taken aback when it aired on December 15. He portrayed Ray Bolano this time around. A contractor who, following a brief liaison with Lori, becomes a stalker. He won't let go even when she attempts to break up. Viewers who only knew him as the witty, compassionate MacGyver were shocked by the film's darkness and unsettling content. It was 94 minutes long and was based on a short story called The Master Builder. It was shot in Vancouver. Records were not broken by the film. From a few hundred IMDb users, it received a rating of 5.9. However, it demonstrated that Anderson wasn't scared to vent and reveal a far more sinister side of himself. The same unafraid attitude reappeared in 2006, but this time it was purely comedic. On April 9, Anderson made an appearance in the Kiss Kiss, Bang Bangalore episode of The Simpsons. The author of the episode was Dan Castellaneta. In fact, the same man who voiced Homer had appeared as a guest star on Stargate SG-1 the previous year. Anderson plays himself in the episode and encounters Selma and Patty, who are MacGyver acolytes. They and the audience are shocked when Anderson admits that he only played MacGyver to get paid and never enjoyed it. He uses a contact lens to focus sunlight to escape from their abduction and heat up his ropes. MacGyver in the classic sense. Then it's even more hilarious. Anderson develops an obsession with escape maneuvers and requests that Patty and Selma continue to kidnap him by posing fresh problems. It was excellent. Fans adored his self-satisfaction and willingness to embrace the ridiculousness. Most people didn't anticipate that side of him to be revealed. It had long been known that Richard Dean Anderson was the man who refused to settle down. In 1992, however, a change occurred. He was reportedly seeing Katharina Witt, a well-known figure skater from East Germany. She was no ordinary athlete. She was a four-time world champion and one of the most well-known people in the world at the time. Not even 2 months passed during their relationship. In 1992, they were spotted together from March to April. Discussed incessantly in the press. Abruptly, it came to an end. Witt was still very competitive when the separation occurred, and Anderson acknowledged that the pressure from all the attention was too much to bear. There was a belief that he had finally found a partner this time. But it was over as fast as it had begun. Prior to that, the 1980s saw his most steady romantic relationship. He was in a relationship with actress Cella Ward from 1983 till 1986. They portrayed siblings on a show where they first met. Off-screen, romance blossomed almost instantly. Cella had recently relocated to Los Angeles, and they began sharing a West Hollywood apartment. They lived as though they were a married pair despite not being married. They became what he dubbed a weekend relationship, though, because his job on MacGyver required him to work 15-hour days. Later, Anderson claimed that although the relationship was lovely, he was afraid of getting married. From April 1991 to February 1993, he dated Terry Hatcher after their breakup. Again, there was no long-term commitment, even though it had been nearly 2 years. The two relationships ended amicably. Everyone in Hollywood, however, was aware that Anderson never got married. Then a person arrived who genuinely altered the cadence of his existence. She went by April Prose. She was not a famous person, she was a fashion stylist. They were introduced by a mutual acquaintance in 1996, and she had low expectations. Anderson seemed to her like another indifferent performer. However, following a single date, April called her mother to inform her that she had found the man she would spend the rest of her life with. For 7 years, they remained together. Wiley Quinn Anna Rose Anderson, their daughter, was born on August 2, 1998. The age of Anderson was 48. Despite never having married, he was suddenly a father. Although they created a life together, he and April did not get married either. No resentment remained when they finally split up in 2003. According to Anderson, his daughter is now his entire priority. However, one brief relationship almost turned everything upside down years before Wiley was even born. Anderson and Lara Flynn Boyle began dating in 1995. Her appearance in Twin Peaks made her one of Hollywood's most talked about celebrities at the age of 25. They were denied a breath by the media. Their 21-year age difference started to come up frequently. Everywhere, tabloids trailed them. According to Anderson, who had been able to maintain his privacy for the majority of his career, it was heartbreaking. Though it didn't make the news, the relationship ended quickly. This is when he realized how toxic the spotlight can be, he added later. He started to distance himself from public life after that. When he began filming Stargate SG-1 in 1997, he made a significant choice. Rather than remaining in Los Angeles, he relocated to Vancouver. He desired some room. Silence was what he desired. Privacy was what he desired. He resided in Canada for 8 months of the year, staying away from Hollywood events and red carpets. He went on a hike. With buddies, he played hockey. And the significance of that piece increased with the birth of Wiley in 1998. To him, his Vancouver home became a haven where he could simply be a father. However, Wiley's delivery was not a calm one. It was scary. When she emerged, she was breathless. She did not cry. While doctors raced to her aid, Anderson stayed motionless and tried to maintain his strength. He started crying when they finally assured him that she was fine. He subsequently described it as the most overwhelming experience of his life. He was totally transformed by it. After that day, she became the center of attention. In 2003, following his separation from April, Anderson became a full-time single father. He wasn't whiny. He took everything in stride. He assumed full responsibility for parenting. Everything from feedings to diapers. By 2017, he was still picking Wiley up after school and transporting her to school every morning, even though he was in his late 60s. He stopped being an actor. He issued writing and sets for peaceful days on his estate in Malibu. Getting up at 3 in the morning, he said. It was never a chore to visit her. He claimed that she never cried unjustly. He never anticipated how much becoming a father at 48 would affect him. Wiley sobbed nearly every day throughout his first year. He made an effort to maintain his composure when April 1st revealed she was expecting. However, he soon found himself reading every parenting book available. In preparation for the delivery, he even enrolled in yoga courses. He was unable to look away from his daughter. Once dubbed Hollywood's most desirable bachelor, the man now stayed at home, paid little attention to calls, and simply cradled his child. He made a decision in 2013 that took everyone by surprise. He was fired. He entirely detached himself from the industry. With MacGyver long gone and Stargate behind him, he made the decision at age 63 to stop chasing money or scripts. He didn't want to miss a second of his daughter's 15th birthday. He was exhausted. The stunts had cost them. More than anything, though, he wished to avoid making the same mistakes twice. He had once been told by people like Terry Hatcher that he was never home. He wished his daughter would not say the same thing. Netflix offered him $15 million for a documentary about his life, but he declined more than $23 million between 2023 and 2025. No, he replied, not wanting his life to be reduced to just content. Disney made an offer of $5 million for 5 episodes of Stargate. In exchange for a single MacGyver reboot episode, Paramount promised $3 million. He made no response at all. According to a news source, Richard Dean Anderson has declined more offers, more money, and more recognition than any other actor in Hollywood history. Nevertheless, he had no regrets. He claimed that the reboot was not authentic to MacGyver's actual self. He had no interest in phony nostalgia. He only agreed to things he supported. And those were dwindling in number. In May 2025, Anderson stunned fans once more during a convention in London. He didn't discuss celebrity. The industry was not commended by him. Hollywood, he said, is a soul-killing machine. He claimed that it just cared about money now, not people. Fans were taken aback. In public, Anderson had always been courteous and endearing, but this time he didn't hold back. After stepping in at the last minute to replace Amanda Tapping, he became the event's emotional focal point. The events sold out of tickets. They wept. He was no longer selling fame. He was not lying. At 75 years old, Anderson has a peaceful life in Malibu. An estimated $30 million is his net worth. In addition to paying $120,000 in property taxes annually, his home alone is worth 9.5% of its value. He isn't concerned about luxury, though. He is involved with environmental organizations. Serving on the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society's advisory board, he aids in the battle against illicit whaling. He backs youth initiatives. Only 3 fan events a year do he attend. His life now revolves around tranquility. His retirement was not an escape. He took a break to be there. He preferred being a father over being famous, quiet over noise, and the real world over the spotlight.